afterward.
Sorry, you're saying?
You'll share the recording with me afterward, is that right?
Okay. All right. So
Can you share the recording with me afterward?
yeah, of course, I'll share it with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so just some logistical things to clear up. So so just have your permission to use your name in the article?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And your preferred pronouns is as stated in your Zoom name right there, right?
Yes, either he, him, or they, them.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so I'll just get into the questions. I guess, first of all, I just want to start off with knowing what motivated you to write the op-ed.
It just seemed like an obvious idea, and I hadn't seen anyone discussing it in the daily or heard people talking about it. So I just thought I'd put it out there as an idea piece and see how people responded to it.
I see. So you say it was an obvious idea. Have you heard like any other faculty members or students discussing like before you have?
No. I thought it was obvious that we might want to consider part of it seemed obvious, the part of moving autumn quarter to start a week earlier, or maybe 2 weeks if we maintain finals weeks, so that we could be finished before Thanksgiving. Because there's so many students who have had to travel a lot during that time of year to go home or someplace for Thanksgiving and then come back for sometimes for just 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks. That seemed unnecessary, and it seemed like a better idea to just get autumn quarter done before Thanksgiving. And also, I really appreciated having the longer break that included Thanksgiving and the usual winter break. And it created a 7-week period with the addition of a week before, an additional week before winter quarter started, when in a normal year, a lot of things could happen that could be quite useful. So those things I thought were worth putting out as possible permanent changes. And then I also I thought it would be an opportunity to bring up creating a short term, which in this proposal I called the December term, which would be analogous to the independent activities period at MIT. I think it's sometimes called the J term, which is a 4-week term in January before the spring semester starts there. And they use it for activities, for shorter term courses, for the types of things that I outlined in that article, as far as I know. I mean, I don't have direct experience with this, but that's my understanding. So all of these things seem to fit together, and I thought it was a nice idea to consider.
I see. Thanks for that. So I was just wondering, have there been, I mean, since you published your article, have there been like any conversations going on, to perhaps enact such a thing, to implement this, like with admin or with other faculty or with the Senate? Has there been any conversations going on?
Yes. So I heard from a number of mostly students and staff members, and maybe 1 or 2 faculty, that they liked the idea when the article first came out. People who read the daily read it, and there were quite a few who mentioned that they liked the idea. And I wrote to the academic secretary and asked what steps would be necessary to get this considered at the university level. And he wrote back with a list of possible ways that the idea could be brought to the faculty senate. So I don't know if you're familiar with those, but I can tell you what they are.
Of course, I would love to know.
Yeah, I can also share this by email because it's actually in the rules of the faculty senate.
Okay, sure.
It says,
Go on.
yeah, this is, I guess, Rule 6 of the Faculty Senate. It says, a matter shall be placed on the regular agenda by the steering committee if a request to do so is received by the academic secretary, supported by, and then there are 5 different ways that this can be brought. A is a petition signed by 14 Senate members, faculty Senate members. B is a referral from the academic council in accordance with the charter. I think that would be like come from a meeting of the whole academic council, all the faculty. C is a petition signed by 50 members of the academic council, so 50 professors. D is a resolution of the Senate of the Associated Students of Stanford University. And E would be a student referendum or a petition signed by 500 or more Stanford students. And that option D, which he says has been employed several times in the past year, requires passage by both the undergraduate senate and the graduate student council. So by faculty senate rules, if any of those options are invoked to get a matter on the senate agenda, then they are required to refer it to first to the relevant committees of the Senate before the Senate discusses it. So I looked into the what he mentioned as the most straightforward way of doing this, which is to contact the chairs of the committees that would be charged with looking at this idea, and those are the Committee on Graduate Studies, also known as CGS, and the Committee on Undergraduate Standards and Policy, or CUSP. I wrote to the chairs of those 2 committees, and I mentioned the article that I had written and that I had gotten some positive feedback about it from faculty and staff, and they wrote back, both committee chairs wrote back and said that actually there were 2 committee chairs for CUSP and 1 for CGS. And I CC'd the staff also for those committees. They wrote back saying that they didn't have room on their agendas for the rest of this year to consider this, but that they thought that it was an interesting idea that could be worth discussing in the future. And that's pretty much where things stand. There were also some comments that came out of that from faculty and students that expressed some concerns about my original proposal. Particularly, I think there's concern about the elimination of finals week, which was it was one part of what I proposed that could be included or not. For example, if in the part of the proposal that involves moving autumn quarter earlier, that could be done either with a 10-week period with no finals week or with a finals week, which would have to, I guess, move the quarter a week earlier. But I think what's emerged for me is that that proposal in particular of eliminating finals week would depend on more widespread adoption of teaching and evaluation practices that are different from what faculty have used in the past. So it not only involves a change in the schedule, but also some changes in the way that people teach and do assessment. And Um, I read a student comment on another website that some faculty this year are teaching in the same way that they have in the past, with final exams, but just giving them in the 10th week, and that that may be worse than not having a finals week.
Yeah. So I guess more on the topic of finals week, like you know that in the op-ed that they are generally disliked by both faculty and students, right? So I just yeah, and like you mentioned, there were several.
Well, I don't know that for sure, but it seemed to me like that's likely to be the case.
I
I
see.
don't know of people who really like finals week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, just like you mentioned just now, there were several reports of classes actually trying to fit in the finals in the 10th week.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, do you know why that would be the case? I mean, you mentioned that it could just be because they have to change all of their evaluation and teaching methods. Do you think that's like the main reason, or have you heard of any other reasons?
Well, I think if people this year have been assuming that this is just a 1 year deviation from our usual calendar, then it wouldn't necessarily make sense for them to redesign their courses just for 1 year. So I think some faculty may be giving finals because um, they think it makes sense to just make the course as similar as it has been in the past and maybe will be in the future as possible. But if we had a permanent schedule change to the calendar, then that would, I think, motivate more faculty to change the way that they teach and evaluate, or it might. I mean, at the very least, they would have to consider the fact that students no longer have an extra week at the end of the term to study for finals. So they would have to either shorten the material that they present to give students more time in the 10th week, or do something. And when the current calendar was instituted last summer, all instructors were encouraged, at least in the school that I teach, by the deans to design our courses in a way that accommodated the lack of a finals week by making assessment more continuous, by having shorter assignments and more frequent evaluation, rather than having a lot of the grade determined by one big final exam at the end. And that was also presented as maybe a better way of teaching overall in many cases. So I was pretty persuaded by that. And I thought if that was widely adopted, then we wouldn't need finals week anymore, and we could do without it, and we could reconstitute those extra weeks together in what I've called the December term, which would be a new thing, and I think could provide some benefits to everybody.
I see. Right. So I was wondering also, like, how have your classes changed due to this schedule difference?
Well, I have mostly taught courses that do not. I haven't taught any courses that have had a finals week since the pandemic started a year ago. Um, um, I'm teaching 2 courses next term in the spring, which I have designed so that there isn't any need for a finals week and neither course has a final. So, but that's usually the case with the courses that I teach anyway. I think the main difference is that in the past, my seminar courses have sometimes bled into finals week in the form of an extra session, and that wouldn't be available. So I would probably just if I was going to hold an extra session, I would probably do it during the 10th week, or just make sure that everything fit into the 10 weeks. But I usually don't give final exams. There is still a question though about final papers and how much weight instructors give to them. So I think in the future, I am persuaded that if there's a final paper at the end of the course, that there should be intermediate steps along the way during which work is read and evaluated from students. And I think that will probably improve my teaching if I do that.
I see. So I just was wondering, in your classes, do you like to replace the finals? And I guess in your case, you're not really replacing finals because you have not really been doing them before. Did I got that correct?
Right. I mean, but not for a while. The last time I taught a course that had a final exam was in 2014.
I see.
When I taught a large intro course. So I think it's more of an issue it's because I don't teach large intro courses usually. But in the few cases when I have tried to make the final exams be more like just a regular midterm in scale.
I see.
So I haven't had a final exam for a long time in a course that I've taught that was comprehensive over a whole quarter.
So like what kinds of methods of evaluation do you prefer? Like I guess projects or quizzes, or what do you switch to?
Yeah, so for my courses, I mean, I don't think my experience is particularly significant since I'm just one instructor and I have a limited range of courses that I teach. But having multiple steps, for example, in putting together a paper so that there's an outline that gets read and graded, and section drafts that get read and graded, and then a final draft at the end. And each of these are, happen sequentially over a period of many weeks during the quarter. I think that gets students into the project earlier and allows for earlier feedback, and is, at least for a small course, is just a better way to evaluate students than having one big paper that's read at the end only.
I see. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I guess have you noticed any differences perhaps in your students, classes as a result of the schedule change? I know it'd be a bit difficult to notice a difference between the schedule change and COVID. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's complicated because we're also all remote. So yeah. It's hard to disentangle the schedule change from being remote. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say probably the same things that others have noted, which are mostly related to the pandemic. And that is the greater stress that students seem to be under, the difficulty of doing remote work. But that doesn't seem to me quite relevant to the calendar change. So when I try to think about things that are a direct effect of the change in the calendar, I mean, one thing I'd say that supports one element of the proposal that I made is that the week before winter quarter started, there was more engagement by students in preparation for the quarter. It allowed them to ask questions about the quarter coming up and for us to do planning on that basis. So that was one of the reasons why I thought it would be a good idea to start a week later, the winter quarter.
Right, thank you. So I guess my next question would be, I guess, in your program, you are in a rather unique position. You work closely with faculty from different departments, right? And I guess, have you observed maybe certain departments are more supportive and others aren't? Have you observed any trend like that?
Are more supportive of what?
Are more supportive of your idea to change the academic calendar?
Oh, yeah, I really don't have enough data for that.
Yeah, it's okay. But in general, do you think, you said that there was some faculty that supported and there were some who expressed concerns, right? In general, do you believe that what kind of level of support do you think you're seeing?
I mean, I guess I'd say the concerns about finals come from faculty who teach finals
I see.
or who give courses with finals, and those tend to be larger courses.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So I think changing the assessment model is probably more of a challenge in larger courses, and there'd probably be more change needed in larger courses than in smaller courses, which many of which already kind of conform to the model that I've been suggesting.
Right. Thanks. So I guess I'm just gonna ask about the December term idea you brought in your op-ed, and like you said, you wanted it to look like MIT's independent activities period. So just
I mean, it doesn't have to look like that. That was just my inspiration for
I
it.
see. Okay. So maybe you could tell me a bit more about what idea you have for that.
Well, one of the ideas would be to have a term when you could teach more intensive and shorter courses.
Mhm.
So as an alternative to a 10-week term, I think there are some topics that might be best taught in an environment where a student is just taking one or maybe two courses, like all morning or all afternoon, 5 days a week. And so these could include training courses where you want all of the students who are going to be doing a given project, for example, to be able to take a course before the full term. It could involve regular courses that are just adapted for a 3-week term. One of the colleges that I considered going to when I was looking at undergraduate colleges was Colorado College, which has I think they have 3.5-week terms in which students take one course for 3.5 weeks. So that kind of inspired me to think a student could take one course intensively over that period and get as much or more out of it as they would if it were stretched out over 10 weeks and they were taking several other courses.
I see.
So you could play with the days to figure out, that you could get as many hours of teaching in 3 weeks as many of us get in 10 weeks, just with more hours per day and more days per week.
So I guess, do you see this as like an optional thing that students can opt into, or would you like?
Yeah, I think it would have to be optional. Another way to take classes and something that a student could kind of like summer quarter or the overseas seminars that a student could do or not during that time, or they might spend the time on something not for academic credit, like a public service project or an extracurricular activity, putting together a performance or a play or something like that. So I think it could be used in lots of ways.
Yes. So I've spoken to a few students, and especially freshmen. Many say that during those 7 weeks of winter break, they struggle to find things to do. So like they didn't really have anything to do. Some of them were quite receptive to the idea of like a December term because I mean it's something that freshmen who may not have research experience or anything yet, they have something to look forward to during those 7 weeks. But there were also some freshmen who said that while they like the idea, they think it kind of defeats the purpose of having being able to go back before Thanksgiving break and not having come on campus uh, during before Christmas. So I was
Yeah.
wondering, do you see any kind of maybe alternative or how would you like to maybe expand this program to accommodate
Well,
this?
of course, I mean, students could take courses remotely during the December term.
Uh-huh.
So that's one way they could go home during that time and still participate. Um, Another thing that a staff member mentioned to me is that for some students, it might be an opportunity to do seasonal work that they can't currently do because they don't have enough time over the winter break. So with 7 weeks or 6 weeks, after Thanksgiving, a student could could get employment maybe during that time, and there are employment opportunities that arise, especially for younger students, because of the holidays in the U.S. So it'd be an opportunity to earn extra money for some students, perhaps. But I wouldn't assume that every student would do the December term. I think it would be an optional thing.
See. Well, thank you for that. So that's actually all the questions I have. I was wondering if you have anything you'd like to add.
Um, yeah, just that I think the best thing that maybe student government or the Daily could do to explore this would be to do a survey of students to find out what their experiences and thoughts are about this year's calendar, and about what types of calendars they would like to see in the future. That's what I suggested to the two committees, that I just like to see the university or the student government or the Daily do some sort of survey while the experience is fresh in people's minds, so that we can learn more about what students and maybe faculty really want.
Yeah, thank you. So, and is there anyone else I should speak to on this subject?
Um, I don't know. I mean, you might talk to the student government,
Mhm.
like the chairs of the undergraduate senate and graduate student council, because they would be the ones who, if there's going to be student action on this, they would be the people that would initiate it.
Right. And just to confirm, previously you said that the there are two committees on the academic senate, the undergraduate so CAS and the graduate studies committee
Yeah.
that have they have responded to your request to put this on the agenda. Is that's what?
Yeah, I didn't request it. I suggested that they might want to consider it, and because those are the two relevant committees that would look into it in the Senate, um, and they indicated that there isn't room on their agenda for them to do that this year.
Okay. Sure. So I guess that's all I have. Thank you for coming for the interview. I will send you the recording later. And if any concerns at all, just feel free to email me. Thank you for coming.
Okay, and you said you would send me quotes for review.
So my editor doesn't allow me to send you the quotes, but I could read them to you if you would like. I could schedule a call and I could just read your quotes to you that I use in the article.
Okay, I'll let you, if you want to do that, you can. Since you have the recording, you can check them directly, but
Yeah.
I won't insist on it.
All right.
Just,
So
can get them accurate.
Just need me to read it back to you, just let me know. I'll be happy to do that.
So were you taking notes here and you're going to base the quotes on your notes, or because if you have them now, you could read them back to me and I could let you know if those are accurate.
No, so I'm just I've not decided like exactly what I want to put in. But yeah. So
If you're going to take them from the transcript, then I'm assuming that they'll be accurate.
yeah, I'm planning to take it from a transcript, so they should be accurate.
Yeah, if you're unsure what I said in a given place because the transcript isn't clear, I'm happy to clear that up for you.
Of course, yeah. I will do that if I need to, and if you would like to be safe or confirm, you can feel free to ask me to read back to you too. No worries about that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. You
Thanks.
too.